Welcome once again, friends. As I was mentioning, we'll read for the reading this evening from the book Living Wisely, Living Well, July 27th. Meet anger when possible with silence, respect, and goodwill. Don't let anyone's anger shake you from that inner resolve. Peace is the way to avoid all emotional whirlpools. Only by first being inwardly peaceful can you influence for good. Can your influence for good spread and bring peace to all? That is a very, very beautiful, you might say, writing, and also I think a very widely needed one, very universal. Kriyanandaji over there is speaking about anger, and at the same time, we see so much anger today, and it's a universal. People have actually come to accept it as part of their nature. But I have so many times, I'm also a doctor and a counselor now, I've heard so many times people say, oh, I don't want to be angry, but I get angry. Or sometimes I've heard, I didn't want to be angry, but you made me angry, and things like that between friends, family, and such. And you wonder that when no one wants to be angry, why is it that this emotion, this harmful emotion, as we will study, it's very harmful spiritually, very harmful for our feelings, personal health, and why is it that it keeps coming back into our lives? And is there a way out? Or are we simply to accept this is how I am, this is how it works? Because you see, the Bhagavad Gita states that on a low level of consciousness, that is considered to be the norm. People say, this is how it is, this is how I am, I cannot change myself. And we see so many families in ruin, utter ruin because of that. And you might even say, actually by extension, so many states and nations where if the leader or if the people are of such nature, it is just not happiness giving. Paramahansa Yoganandaji says there are certain families where people are born simply to work out that kind of karma, and hence he said that was, I think, a reassurance he was giving to some people, that don't find too much personal fault in yourself or your relatives. Or he actually said even countries and galaxies, depending on one's consciousness, can be of a lower consciousness where harmful emotions, one of which is anger, prevail. But on the other hand, in God's creation we have these higher ones too. But personally, for me, when I was reading that, I could relate to it somewhat because, I've been angry in my life sometimes. But then I thought, when I was reading this reading, I said, Swami's opening line is to accept it with silence, respect and goodwill. And I said, have I any time expressed that? And it took me a few minutes, but I came up with a few instances. I'll share two of them. And they are important, not so much for personal stories, but they are important because actually I had forgotten them for a while. And our mind, our ego can sometimes tell us, oh, as if it didn't happen. But Master said, if something good happened in your past, he says, if you have to go back to your past, think of those good things. So I want to share these two examples where, it was nice to go through some experience. Well, one was here itself in Pune. A few years ago, I was driving a car and I was carrying some guests. I think all of them were ladies, and some senior acharyas, and we were going somewhere. And I crossed the traffic light, but as I was crossing, a bike came very fast, and a man, he was yelling as he crossed me. And I think I could easily make out that he thought I have jumped the light, but I had not. It was quite clearly green signal. So anyway, I could see in the rear mirror that he turned around on his bike and zoomed past, and then he overtook me and stopped my car on the road and parked his bike. And he got off, and he was like in a real mood, I think, to almost pull me out. He was a big man, I'm no small, but he was just like, he came to the driver's seat and he says, come out of the car. And I said, did you see it was green light? I said, I think maybe you were wrong. And he says, no. And he actually somewhere even thought, because as he was crossing and yelling at me, I told him to look at the light, and he said, you made some gesture towards me and this and that. And all the while I can now look back and say I was quite calm. First of all, because I had not done anything wrong. And secondly, to see how terribly mistaken he was. So I was in a very good mood to actually make him understand that it was not an issue. Anyway, when I could see he was not, and he started, getting very aggressive. So at some point, I was in the car and I said, "Sir, please try to understand. I was not. This is totally a misunderstanding." And then I was praying to God. I said, "What a strange incident this is." And suddenly I saw, like the logo that I'm wearing, I saw in his pocket was one of his guru's picture. In India, many times we wear it on our badge and ball pen and such. And I said, "Oh, you're from that organization." I said, "I love some of the quotes you've put on different cars and website." I said, "By the way, I'm from Ananda, Paramahansa Yogananda's organization." And he heard Master's name and he instantly said, he looked around in the car, who else was there? And he said, "Really?" And I said, yeah, I'm a Brahmachari with them and we are going somewhere. And I said, "Sir, I don't know what understanding you're coming from, but I said, I really did not jump the light. Maybe the traffic light was showing 2 signals. I said, that happens sometimes." And we both started smiling and he said, "It's okay, I'm happy now," and he left. And later on, some people said, "That was very calm of you, you were very calm." But I could only think of that I was not wrong. So I was not afraid of anything. And in misunderstanding, people can even hurt us. But somewhere there is a magic. If we are right, there is a strength that I saw naturally comes. Another time though, I had to summon that strength. And this happened when I was out alone in a port area near Mumbai, shopping for an expensive stuff for the ashram. And when I was getting it was getting close to sunset, and the team there could see that I was needing a vehicle, I was needing the crane to upload this thing. And they started telling me that, they said, "Oh, we'll do all of this, but what will you give us?" And I said, "I've paid a huge amount for this container itself, what else do you need?" And they said, no, we also need something. And they started asking for an exorbitant amount. And I said, "No, this is for ashram work. I cannot give this. I'll give you something for tea." And I offered like 200 rupees or something for their team. And they were not happy. They said, "If you don't give us the money, nothing is moving." And then I said, "Well, I'm not paying anything." I was very certain about it. And I went back to the manager and he just told me, he said, "Sir, it's better to pay these people. They can be rough, And I looked at him and I felt, first of all, very sorry for him. He was running such a big port company and he was threatened by these people. That's not a good way to lead your life. Anyway, I told him, "I'm giving you all the money, you settle this affair, but I will not pay anything." And they told me that if their boss comes to know, anyway, it could get a serious matter. And it turned out like that. They called him, he came, and publicly, in a small way, you might say, assaulted me. And all this while, one of the employees came and he said, "Sir, sometimes these people even carry a gun, you should run away." And I said to myself and to Yogananda, who was my guru, I said, a gunshot would be really a disaster. But I said, if it's my karma, I don't know, am I being foolish? But I said, I really don't want to be buckling under fear over here. And I want to present my case, and a little bit exchange of things and words is fine. So anyway, when they came, and finally after they beat me, they gave me some slaps here and there. I can tell you again from experience that instantly I felt very calm. It was like, oh, this is what was trying to happen. This is the maximum that could happen. And then to my own surprise, the person who was a gangster, they were saying, he started saying, because they had told him on the phone that I'm a monk and I'm a doctor and this is for a good cause. And he said, "Oh, I was telling you, just pay some money and get away from here, but why did you make me do all of this? I never do this. I never do this. But you made me do it." Again, like there was a sudden initial minor fear in my heart became love. Became just like, okay, is this it? Maybe it was for their lesson. It certainly was for me, that I wanted to stand up to certain principles and I had to face their anger. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make over here is it is possible. I also personally feel this is one of the more difficult things to conquer in life, but it can be done. And I want to start on this topic of anger from 2 aspects. Everything in life can be good, can be not so good, especially if done in extremes. So when I was reading about this topic, I was intrigued by the fact that is anger good in any situation? And I found 2 instances in the Bhagavad Gita where Swami Kriyananda explains. He says, it can be good, but he says you have to understand that one has to be calm. And not just somewhat calm. one has to be really rooted in calmness, he said, because he says sometimes you see some things need to be done and it requires what he called a calm fervor. And he says in that calm fervor, to get the wheels moving, he says one may have to exert or even exhibit anger, but he says the heart must be very calm. And I think it's again a matter of practice. I've heard of some stories where Yoganandaji, for example, was giving a monk or a nun a scolding. It was rare, but Swami says he was inwardly free. So I think it's something like that. Also, this helped me understand somewhat how Krishna and other great warriors must have gone through the Bhagavad Gita, for example, because it was a righteous war, which is when anger is allowed. Swami says, he also said one's willpower should be again very calm. You have to do something, you have to get it done. He says in that calm application of willpower from the spiritual eye, he says there is also joy, because one understands, one has discrimination. When one has discrimination, he or she understands. It's like a parent. They understand this is necessary. I have to give this lesson to the child right now. Or, but there's no personal desire at all to engage personally or to inflict that pain on somebody. So, calm willpower and calm fervor. When that is the intention, Kriyanandaji says, anger is allowed. Actually, I want to go back and look where does the word anger come from, because they use the word that anger is allowed. So anyway, it's for our practice, but more than that, feeling. And that's where I want to come to the second part of anger. Almost all of us know anger is not good, like I explained in the beginning. Why is it not good? Well, first of all, medically, I can tell you anger totally destroys our brain. I mean, people can die because of anger. It can precipitate a heart attack. People who are habitually angry also have other behavioral tendencies, and now psychiatry and neurology has caught up to such a degree that they have found that people who are prone to anger are not, their different brain areas are not in sync. They are not having as many connections. So for example, they say that such people are not very fit in the society, which we can see sometimes, but they say that the main reason is they're not able to relate to society. They are not able to, they interpret even a small move or a remark from somebody as a threat, and they respond with anger. So for that reason, anger is not good. But coming to the spiritual side of it, this was explained thousands of years ago by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, and it is such a beautiful verse that I want to read it before I explain it. This is from the chapter 3, Freedom Through Action. This is chapter 2, the nature of right action. Dwelling mentally on sense objects breeds attachment to them. From attachment arises craving. From craving, when frustrated, springs anger. Anger produces delusion. Delusion causes forgetfulness of the self. Loss of memory as to what one is in truth causes decay of the power of discrimination. From loss of discrimination ensues the annihilation of all right understanding. So there it is explained so beautifully how it works. Paramahansa Yoganandaji said in our consciousness, in our beings, we have 4 levels. First, the mind, then the mind over here, then the intellect, the ego, and the feelings. So by anger, if our feelings are disturbed, it distorts the whole composition, you might say. It brings our consciousness down, as I was saying. But how does this all begin? It is important to know, because then I actually found in the readings, it is so easy to explain to people, because once I remember a young boy came to our ashram, and after the satsang was over, he said, "Can we sit in one side and talk?" And I said yes. And then he said, after a while, he said, "Oh, but you won't understand, this is about anger." And I said, "It's okay." I said, "You can tell me." I said, "I'll understand." Because people think that it doesn't make sense to other people, but it's very easy to get out of anger once we understand how it moves into the consciousness. Kriyanandaji explains that our soul, when it comes into the human form or in its own self is pristine, is beautiful, it remembers everything, and that's why if we see a saint or saintly people, they are just, you might say, the universal human being. They can relate to anybody, they are kind, they behave appropriately, they can be quiet, they can be, all those things. Good people, very good people, and you wonder, my goodness, he or she is special, but it's not like that. Swami says that's the soul, natural way for the soul to behave. But when the soul gets caught in ego consciousness, especially in the body, it starts thinking of itself alone as the body. And we have to remember that in order to seek a true solution out of anger and attachment and this limitation, which I think almost all of us are seeking, one unfortunately has to go through the painful suffering of first realizing that he is not happy with his present circumstances. So here we are, the soul in the body, attached with an ego and thinking that, let's say it is this particular, let's say it is Johnny manifesting in the body is what the soul defines itself. But then, this definition is seeking a much wider experience. And for that, Swami says it starts engaging itself in one experience, in interactions, in acquisition of things. And when that begins, with each acquisition comes a fleeting moment of joy, and it feels, oh, if only I could do more of this. But at the same time, it knows that this might go, and that process hastens. So the ego in its desires can never be satisfied, but with each desire it feeds, it gets, it's self-defeating, it gets trapped in this consciousness where fear overtakes it. And then when a desire is frustrated, when it does not, when our likes and dislikes which we've accumulated start getting thwarted, it manifests as anger. Now this anger is certainly not good for us. And Swami says the best way, he says, is once we've realized that there is so much suffering involved in this, he says, is to take less self-interest in whatever we are doing. And that makes sense because when we remove ourselves personally from a picture, we are trying to see, okay, what's trying to happen over here? How can I help other people? A very important component in finding a solution way back from this whirlpool, emotional whirlpool, as Swamiji was saying, is through meditation. How is that? On our path especially, we recommend meditation for every malady. For our Param Guru, Lahari Mahashaya, he said, do more kriyas for every challenge. And one way to see how it can help us overcome fear and anger especially, is this. When we meditate, and especially on times when we have a deeper experience and we can meditate longer, observe other people who are meditating, you will see that there comes this self-respect first. And it is not, how can we put it? It is not imaginary, it is knowing. You simply know that I'm not just this body, I have the potential to be so much more happy in this meditation, and you come out and there's this state of calmness which is not disturbed, and it is so enjoyable. So when that experience comes, Kriyananda ji says you start looking around and you see everybody with the same potential. And actually, somebody was relating this story to me that he or she once went out of our temple and it was a long meditation and the person was hungry. So he went to the grocery store which was about to get closed. And in the grocery store, as it happens when businesses are closing for the day, the shopkeeper was reminding, his staff, and one of them for a very petty issue. And the person said that they were not even bothered that I was there to buy some cookies because I was hungry. But he says what really struck me was not my hunger. What was striking me was that this poor boy at the end of a long day was getting such a scolding for a petty issue. And this gentleman said, he says, there is so much potential for joy, calmness, peace, self-respect for one another. God resides in everybody, but through meditation, we realize it in ourselves. We feel it, and then naturally I think we treat people that way. And that is a very nice and direct way to overcome anger because it's from experience, and I think these experiences do empower us. These are the only things. I also want to relate a few stories from our Guru Paramahansa Yogananda ji's life, where he showed how God intervenes in order to spare the devotee the trouble of anger. One was a case when Paramahansa Yogananda ji was still a boy. He was once, went to a new neighborhood and he loved playing football. But the boys who played football over there, master says, were using, foul language. And he told them, if you keep using this language, I will not play with you. And they kind of took it personally as an offense. And a few days later, they again asked him, and master says, no, if you continue with this, I will not be joining you. I'm sorry. And they set one of the bullies, his name was Jotin, on master one day. And as master was walking with a few friends, in the middle of the ground was Jotin standing with a big stick. And master says, my friends told me, let's not go there. And they started shifting and they left for home. Master said, I also returned home, but only to meditate. And he meditated first, he said to Shiva, and he prayed. He says, by my love, please destroy Jotin's anger. And after a brief meditation, he left for the ground and the boy was still there. And master walked up to him and with a friendly smile looked at him and then calmly gazed and continued gazing. And then Jotin just looked at master, looked here and there, and then he smiled and left the place. The next day, master said that Shiva or Lord God came in Jotin's dream and told him to take further guidance from Yogananda ji. So that for me was a very extreme example of God intervening to help Yogananda ji and to help this boy who was in future also helped by master and his counsel. He actually became master's student. Another time, master was very ill. This was towards the end of his life. And there were some organizational challenges, and Swami Kriyananda ji says master was taking on karma and he was bedridden, but he knew of a certain big challenge that the organization was going through and was praying that it be resolved. And he says that in that moment, Divine Mother, I don't know if it was a vision or a reality, but she manifested as a little girl, and he said she danced on his forehead and he saw her and he saw light around her, which he took as a message that don't worry, the problem will be resolved. And then the news came that somebody was trying to hurt the organization intentionally, and one of the devotees stood up and he publicly denounced this person and settled the matter. When master got well, he sat with this gentleman, first thanked him for helping sort the matters, and then he added, he says, it would have been much better though if you would have been able to respond with calmness and harmony, without losing harmony. And I again found that very interesting because good was achieved. Divine Mother came and told master it will be taken care of, but it could always be taken care of in a better way. And I think that is what we are all striving for in our relationships, in our day-to-day interactions. As I said, in my own, as I look back, as I'm moving ahead on the path, we look back at some of these instances and be proud of them. They are very empowering. They are very important to realize that we are moving in that direction. But by daily meditation and understanding and prayers, and remember that self-respect, and don't keep that experience for yourself. Master says bring it out as kindness for others. It actually naturally springs, but sometimes we are shy to express our inner feelings. But that should not be the case. It is only helpful for others also to see a more practical, moving example of love, of forgiveness, because if we've lost our temper, others are losing their temper. And with that, I would like to read this beautiful prayer of Yogananda ji, which is a universal one, to cure us from the anger habit. And it has a very beautiful ending on kindness and love. O Spirit, Father, save me from the fever attacks of anger that have burned my brain, stressed my nerves, and poisoned my very blood. O Father, when I am tempted to be angry, place before me a mirror of introspection. Let me see my face then, distorted and ugly with wrath. Father, as I don't like to be seen disfigured, let me not show myself before others with a face made repulsive by wrath. Father, help me to dissolve this anger like a lump of earth cast into a lake. Want of self-control only makes me and others also shudder with misery. Bless me that I may never injure the love I bear others, and their love for me with selfish knife thrusts of vexation. Bless me that I feed not my anger with more anger. Teach me how to cure any wound it inflicts by applying the salve of self-respect and the balsam of kindness. Command every storm of anger that rises suddenly to pause ere it breaks, lest it engulf my mind. Help me to see only kindness reflected in my mental lake. Why disturb those calm waters with blasts of disharmony, producing only misery and useless agitation? Show me, Father, that even my self-appointed worst enemy is still my brother, that thou lovest him even as thou lovest me. So let's march onward with daily meditation, self-respect for one another, and kindness in our hearts. God bless you.